Apple has developed an iPhone app that rivals ChatGPT. Be careful about that word rivals, but it is internal only to test and prepare for next year's AI-driven Siri overhaul. So this is the plan they announced, I guess it was last year, that they would be renewing Siri by 2026. And everybody laughed at them. This is 2024 they announced it, and everyone laughed. Like, a 2-year timeline in AI is ridiculous. It's so far away. We don't know what the technology is going to look like in 2 years. So the fact that Apple were like, oh yeah, we're working on AI Siri and it's going to be ready in 2 or 3 years, they got laughed at. However, the argument can be made that Apple are very good at coming in second and then perfecting or making the form better. So they've done this multiple times with something like the iPod. They were not the first people to create an MP3 player. We had Zunes, we had Creative Labs, we had many MP3 players, but Apple came in with the iPod and blew away the market, and they took the market. Same with the iPhone. So we had smartphones before the iPhone. They waited, and then they came out with the smartphone. The tablet, iPad, same thing. I think Windows Surface or some version of it existed before. But they wait until the market has matured a little bit. They wait until the technology has allowed it to become mass market, and then boom, they enter. They may be doing this with artificial intelligence. The complexity here is it's hard to do that on the sly because you need to build big old data centers or rent a huge amount of data centers. And we haven't really seen much evidence that they're doing that. Maybe they've done it quietly. They have the cash. They certainly could have, but you would have thought they would be shouting to the rooftops, oh, we're developing AI, and this is where we've spent a couple of $100 million, but they could be sneaking it out. So there is an AI model, and you can actually get it to run on locally. There's an app on iPhone called Locally, made by, I've forgotten his name, he's probably in chat somewhere here, which allows you to test out the model. But it looks like they're preparing and they will actually push something. So Apple Inc. has developed a ChatGPT-like iPhone app, codenamed Veritas, to test and prepare for a long-anticipated overhaul of Siri coming next year. The app is meant for internal use and to be used by company's AI division to quickly evaluate new features for Siri, including testing the ability to search through personal data and perform in-app actions. The new Siri is now slated to debut as early as March after multiple delays, and its success could help propel Apple towards an AI comeback or risk slipping behind smartphone rivals. Yeah, so it's called Veritas, and it looks like ChatGPT. All the chatbot apps basically look the same. What I want to know is if it works on the device. I think it probably will, because they are putting a lot of extra memory into their new phones, and the chipsets increasingly are becoming more and more useful for running models. Let's talk about the M5 chip coming next year. So I'm just checking what year it is, which is supposedly going to be purpose-built for running large language models. So maybe they're going to make their move. They're just going very slowly. So in a recent meeting with staff, CEO Tim Cook said the company must win in AI, calling it the biggest transformation in decades. This is ours to grab, Cook said. We will make the investment to do it. It just seems odd after years of not really pushing anything, or worse, pushing things like the memojis, the ability to gen-emojis, whatever it's called, the ability to generate AI crappy emojis. Like, they've put out a few half-baked releases with AI, and then at the recent launch of the iPhone 17, they just didn't really talk about AI at all. I think the only thing was the AirPods being able to do simultaneous translation, but otherwise they kept stum on it. So I don't know what they're doing. I'm not sure if they know what they're doing, but it would be nice to see Apple enter the market and actually become a player with AI. That would allow them to become one of the biggest players very quickly because they have distribution via their phones. They can suddenly put consumer level or consumer AI into the hands of billions of people because people have their phones and it can be baked in. But I think we're going to have to wait until 2026 before we see. Because Siri itself, I think Siri's about 14 years old and is terrible. And Siri is a form of AI. It's just not generative AI. It's based on natural language processing, and it's a different form. And I think that is a bit of a hangover, because lots of people will assume, oh, Siri is AI, which it is, but it's a different form to what we now think of as AI, which is a more modern form, which is large language based. large language models based chatbots for the most part. I'm simplifying. Right. Let's see if there's any questions. Apple Intelligence able to run on device? Yeah. I think this is going to be their big selling point. How much consumers care about that will be a question. I think for people who in the AI sphere, people who think privacy is important, this is a big deal. Being able to run a model directly on your telephone, we call it edge AI. So it's not happening in the cloud, it's happening on our local device. I think it's probably where a lot of things will move. How much the consumer, the average iPhone buyer, cares about that, I am suspect about that. I don't think they'll care. I think the average consumer using AI, they don't know where it's being processed, nor do they particularly care where it's being processed. They just want good answers coming back at a good speed. If running it on device, on an edge function, means it's going to be slower or it's going to be not as good as ChatGPT, then Apple have lost immediately. It's not good enough to release a model that is about as good as the others. It needs to be better because you need to pull people away from their existing habits, which is using ChatGPT. 700 million people using ChatGPT. So it needs to be leaps and bounds better to actually get people to unstick, especially with ChatGPT where you have things like persistent memory. So the more you use ChatGPT, the better it gets because it knows more and more about you, which means that switching to any new model is always a bit of a pain because the new one will not know those facts about us, which makes starting to use one much more painful, and you're more likely to go back to the existing model, ChatGPT, because it already knows all of that context.